Last week we told you the amazing story of Nancy R. Allen and her path to pioneering women's rights in 1854. This week we'll take you through the momentum of that movement her spark helped to ignite. But first, we wanted to take a little time to explain what the Ripon Rabbit Hole is. You may already know that we're releasing a documentary film this fall. The film will focus on some of the very same topics we're releasing here in our weekly case files, and present a range of stories from the Phalanx to Ceresco and Ripon through the assassination of Lincoln. All of the case files in some way or another are related to each other and lead us down the rabbit holes to the final destination of the ultimate story not yet revealed. A story that is so shocking it could change history as we know it, but only if people pay attention to it. So that's why we need your help. Would you do us a favor and please share our weekly email or website with at least 3 people this week? I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have the historical perspective in view by many, many people at the time we unearth our breathtaking discovery. So thanks for doing that. Back into the little white schoolhouse we go, as the road to women's rights and suffrage proved a long and windy one that didn't actually see the light of day until years after Miss Nancy R. Allen had passed away. Many today perhaps could make an argument that the road still needs a lot of construction. Nevertheless, it was hundreds of thousands of women like Nancy A., Susan B., and Elizabeth E. who carried that torch towards victory and passed it to the one woman who would carry it across the finish line.
The organized woman movement dates from 1848, when a convention to consider the rights of women was held in Seneca Falls, New York. The committee drafting the list of woman's wrongs found her grievances against the government of men to be the same number that American men had had against King George. It took George Washington 6 years to rectify men's grievances by war, but it took 72 years to establish women's rights by law. At least 1,000 legal enactments were necessary, and every one was a struggle against ignorant opposition. Women's suffrage is a long story of hard work and heartache, crowned by victory.
And that woman was Carrie Chapman Catt. She was the American women's suffrage leader who campaigned for the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which gave U.S. women the right to vote in 1920. Catt served as president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association, taking over for Susan B. Anthony in 1890, and was the founder of the League of Women Voters and the International Alliance of Women. She led an army of voteless women in 1919 to pressure Congress to pass the constitutional amendment giving them the right to vote, and convince state legislatures to ratify it in 1920. She was one of the best-known women in the United States in the first half of the 20th century, and she was born in Ripon, Wisconsin, January 9th, 1859, just 4 years after the meeting took place in the Little White Schoolhouse. That same one-room schoolhouse was Carrie's first introduction to education. She insisted on going to school because all of the children in her neighborhood went to school, and she had to prove her right to stay by learning the twos in the multiplication table better than anyone else. In 1936, she told an amazing story for a feature in the New York Herald Tribune about a particular spring day with the lilacs on the teacher's desk of the Little White Schoolhouse in Ripon, Wisconsin.
I was about 6 years old. It was nearing the summertime, and the boys and girls of the little school where I received my earliest education were asked to stand in a line by the teacher,
Carrie said.
I remember the large cracks in the floor, and when we lined up with our toes touching one straight crack. Suddenly, while the teacher was talking to us, one of the girls' hoop skirts became loose and slipped down to the ground. The little girl cried, and the boys all giggled out loud. the teacher tactfully gathered up the girl and the hoop skirt in her arms, carried her out, and repaired the damage.
Carrie went on to say,
At noontime, those boys came to the girl and poked fun at her. And as they continued their annoyance, I went up to the leader and slapped his face. They had more respect for the girls after that. I never forgot the hot indignation I felt, nor the sense of triumph when I gave him the most terrible grimace I could invent. Thus, I became a champion. I had defended my sex.
Carrie had been selected as one of the great women of the world at the Women's Congress in Istanbul, Turkey, the others being Madame Marie Curie of France and Jane Addams. At the time of her death in 1847, Carrie Chapman Catt was probably better known to more women in more countries than any other living woman to that date, and acclaimed by many as the woman of the century, reaching 88 years of age. In the Mason City Gazette in 1956, they held the hoop skirt incident responsible for her life's career. Are you beginning to see how Ripon, Wisconsin is no doubt truly a special place? It seems those who have lived there seem to absorb a special magic or a unique energy of some kind. Perhaps it's indigenous to the area. One thing we know for certain is it takes courage to be united. See how the Ripon Rabbit Hole works? It's a bit like time traveling. Next time we'll crawl back to 1854 to focus on a man named Sherman Booth, who might just have been in the Little White Schoolhouse meeting that famous night if he hadn't been arrested. Join us again next week, and we'll tell you why. And we'll reveal an ultimate clue to our final story. To learn more, visit riponrabbithole.com and be sure to subscribe for additional case files.